Hey everyone, Chris Sawyer's here once again with the Varietal Show. The Varietal Show is back. I'm with my great friend Barry Waitte, and I'm at Tamber Bey. This is Calistoga, California. Anyone ever been here before? And if you haven't, you need to come. Calistoga is an amazing place. It's at the northwestern tip of Napa Valley, and it's a warm, wonderful area. I met Barry a number of years ago, pretty much when this winery started, Tamber Bey. It is really on the northern side of Napa Valley. It's in a very special place, Barry. One thing that has always fascinated me about Barry and why there is a horse on the front of this bottle is it's not that Barry wasn't passionate about things before he got into the wine industry. He was an endurance horseback rider, and so was his wife. And so you guys went out there, you did endurance racing, one of the most amazing things on horses. And being a boy that grew up riding horses with my grandfather, who was very well versed in that, it was a really special thing when I got to know you, and my love for horses and the wine's killer. Really helped that. We made a good connection, yeah. And you and I have been to Telluride together. We've done a lot of things together. I bring very, people that really love great high-end wines to visit Barry. But really, what was it that got you into? What brought you here to Napa Valley?
Chris, my history into Napa dates back to 1959.
Yeah, this I did not know, everyone.
I was born in San Francisco. My parents decided to start vacationing in St. Helena. Oh. So they rented a home for a week. That week turned into 2 weeks. That 2 weeks turned into a month. I spent my entire childhood through high school in Napa Valley.
Well, let me make a point here then, because Barry knows exactly what I'm talking about. When I was a kid in the 1970s, and we would drive right over the hill from Sonoma County, from where I lived there in the Russian River Valley, we'd drive over the hill. There's a lot of fruit trees here. There's a lot of fruit trees, and there was a lot of nut trees here. And there was a bunch of cattle, and there was a bunch of stuff. Today, it looks very, very different. Don't you agree?
Oh, totally. I think, I don't know when the switch was, when more than 50% of what was grown here was fruit for wine.
Yep.
But walnuts and prunes and a whole bunch of other types of fruits were grown here for years and years before the wine industry took off.
Exactly.
But for me, I had a bottle of wine in college that changed my life. It was a 1974 George Latour from Boyer Vineyards. That was my pivot point. Went into corporate America, though, always dreaming about what it would be like to have a vineyard in my front yard. And in 1999, I decided to make the switch. I moved up here and started my wine business.
Yep. 1999, good year. Good year for a lot of things, especially for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Now that we're talking about that, here we've got a Chardonnay. This is from right there in and around your amazing estate vineyard. So we're in Calistoga right now, but really where you live, where your house is. This is a whole stables around us too, everyone. And you have to look at the website at Tamber Bey. And Bay is with a B-E-Y.
Sure.
And we'll tell you why in a moment, that is. But Yountville is where you live. Yountville to me has become one of those other places, like you used to stop for gas there or go to the Mexican bar, and that was about it. Now it's where you go to the French Laundry, where you go to these places that are so extravagant and wonderful, and yet it still feels like you're in a really great, wine country experience place. It's not too snooty or anything. It feels relaxed there. It's a really great place. There's something about how close it is to the bay that makes it a very good place to grow Chardonnay.
Yeah, it is. Napa Valley is 30 miles long, and right at that Yountville area, there's a hill called Yount Hill. And what that does, it keeps a lot of the bay influence of the soft air coming off the water up to that point. Past that point, it gets pretty warm. Yep. Not good for Chardonnay.
No.
So this vineyard is just south of that hill. I've been producing this fruit for 24 years now. Oh. This particular wine I've been making now for about 12 years. Mm. This one is a wine that's 100% Chardonnay. It's also 100% stainless steel.
Stainless steel. That's what it tastes like Chardonnay does.
It is the real deal.
The real deal.
It's what Chardonnay should.
I've always
taste
liked this. For, you know, you're one of the ones I really put in my, like. There's 5 that I really think of for, you know, unoaked Chardonnays that really stand out to me. Yours is one of them. And I think that this is so good because the other ones usually are not from Napa.
No, they're not. Yeah. They're not. And so, you know, we call this something a little different. We don't use the term unoaked.
Yep.
I was actually schooled by a French winemaker that says, why do you use the term unoaked? You're not taking oak out of the wine. And I agreed with him. That's cool.
Yeah.
So we call this one Sans Chêne. Sans Chêne in French means without oak or without wood. It's a little more proper name for the wine. Now, what we do a little bit different with this than a lot of other unoaked makers is we leave the lees on the wine for the entire gestation in the tank. That gives this wine a wonderful texture, gives it a wonderful mouthfeel, but doesn't detour from that purity of Chardonnay juice.
Yeah.
That's why it's so good.
It's so good, you guys. And you know what I love about it? It has all that kind of lovely aromas for sure. I mean, it invites you right in, and then you get in there, and there's this like nice little quince, white peach, this melon kind of note, and then the citrus is all around it.
All around it.
It's all around it, and so it's not like that super tropical kind that you get Russian River, places like that, and it's not really the kind of lemon zest one that you get from Carneros. It's its own being, and I like that because it's also pure. So you're really tasting these things without the oak integration. You know,
right? That's right. So I think you might call it a warm climate Chardonnay, but this is where it works really well.
Yeah, but remember, every mile you drive north, you go up 1 degree here in Napa Valley. And it's a little bit warmer just to start with than Sonoma County, so it's a very different place. That's why Chardonnay can work in a lot of different places here. You really it goes up to about Yountville, and then it kind of gets to be Sauvignon Blanc all in the middle of the valleys.
A little thicker skin.
Yep, a little thicker skin because that gets hot. Yep. So next wine we're going to taste is, you're going to come over to my zone. In Pinot Noir, in Carneros here in Napa Valley, you can grow definitely a very good Pinot Noir in Carneros. I think that they've done a really good job of really making it into fine Pinot Noirs now, but before that, it should have been made into sparkling wines. But that's not the case in Russian River Valley. We've got a lot of heritage there, and this is another great example of the one from Sonoma Coast in this case. So tell us a little bit about this vineyard and your passion for Pinot Noir.
Well, we started making Pinot Noir in 2012. We experimented with a number of vineyards, really great vineyards. But we took advantage of the COVID period and a couple other instances to really upgrade our Pinot program. So we are just releasing this year 3 different Pinot Noirs. The one we're going to taste now is called from the Mayfi Vineyard, just outside of Sebastopol.
Yep.
A wonderful vineyard, wonderful family that farms it. We make about 330 cases, so it's not a large production. 100% Pinot Noir, and Derek has done a wonderful job. Derek Flegel is our winemaker here. He's done a wonderful job of really elevating our entire Pinot program and doing something that he and I talk about frequently, where Pinot is the greatest varietal that really takes advantage and accentuates the soil and the terroir of where it's at. You can literally, as we talk about, it could be across the street, and it could be an entirely different Pinot taste.
Yeah, it's a funny thing too. It's so vulnerable to taking on the personality of where it's at. It really does. You have these different clones or special selections like the Swan clone, and if you plant it like here, or say we're in someplace in Sonoma Coast, we plant it here and we go down the street a mile, and we plant the same thing. They do not taste alike. I mean, they just adapt to their areas. But you have to get the clones over here first, and I think the Swan clone is a good example. And then you've got all the Dijon selections we have over there as well. This is really, I haven't tasted it yet. The nose is blowing me away.
Yeah.
This nose, wow.
Yes.
Hello. And this is the one you were very excited to taste.
I was. And so where this is has a little bit of a wind factor to it. And what wind does to a Pinot grape, it creates a little bit of a thicker skin. So with that thickness of skin, you get a little bit more embodiment of that really dark red fruit. Yeah,
there's a lushness to it, but there's a deep density to it, dark fruits. there are also wild bits to it too. There's like a wild, almost black raspberry kind of touch to it, but that dark cherry, black raspberry, a little bit of that, kind of almost a blackberry that you were down at the creek and it was a hot day and you just picked it and oh God, that's good. Nice and juicy, but also defined. I mean, it's got body, it's got weight. This is like duck. Duck is calling me right now.
Right now.
Rabbit raviolis, duck, wild, like some wild mushroom risotto underneath a lamb dish. I'm feeling good right now with this.
It's a really versatile style, right? You can go a little bit lighter, a little bit darker. It's really going to carry you all that way in your food program that you want to do that.
Oh my God. It's
It's
so
beautiful.
good. Great mouthfeel. Too.
So we had, as I said, we changed our entire Pinot program. So I have 2 others just for fun, and you probably know these vineyards. I also have one coming from the UV vineyard,
the UV,
which is not too far from this, but even a bigger, richer style. And then we went down to Santa Barbara, and
Santa Rita Hills, man.
Santa Rita Hills, Radiant.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know Radiant.
Right? Radiant from the Hilt.
I love the Hilt, the family. The people that own that, I got to go down there last year for the World of Pinot Noir. Love that event. I always love promoting them. But yeah, I mean, I went to Hilt. The winemaker there is great. That place is ridiculous.
It is.
I mean,
It's
one of
fantastic.
the most cutting edge places you'll ever see. When a winemaker gets everything he wants. Speaking of which, we should say a little bit about how you set up your whole production facility here. Came in with another great winemaker that really helped you design this.
All right, so my original winemaker when I got started back now almost 20 years ago was Thomas Rivers Brown. Thomas was a young winemaker. I hired him to make my first wines. We made 150 cases on my first release in 2001, and then we grew the program. Thomas is still with us. He still does a lot of our consulting work here. We actually make wine in our facility for 12 of his clients.
Yeah, so
he's integrated.
So when you drive in the driveway here, we have the horses and the corrals here. So this was something that the vineyard is not really here. And I want to say this because this is a special land that really wasn't made. This isn't the best place to grow Pinot Noir. It's too hot. Chardonnay, too hot. Cabernet, you could do it, but it's not going to be high quality Cabernet.
I got one other thing for you.
Yeah.
Right next door is the geyser.
Is the geyser.
So we have a little bit of a water issue.
Geyser.
We had a water issue.
There's a water issue here, but right on the other side of the hill, like this little baby hill right there, is Chateau Montelena. So that's where we're at. Is right next to Chateau Montelena, but it's one hill away, and it's right there in Calistoga, just above Calistoga. We're a mile north of Calistoga, just so you know. So that's why I mean you've been really going with your estate property. And you find the great Pinot sites from the coastal regions, and then we get into Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon, the one thing about Cabernet Sauvignon is it really doesn't want deep soils. It wants to work hard. Well, it doesn't. We want it to.
Very good one.
That's a better way of putting it. But it's a special thing, when we get into these, when we're really thinking about endurance, and endurance for you, and we'll talk about the cabin in a second, but endurance for you, Tamber Bey. Why is the name Tamber Bey?
I named my winery after my first 2 Arabian horses. And why am I into horses is not because I'm in love with horses per se, but because of the sporting event that my wife and I do. We ride horses in a race for 50 to 100 miles in a single day. It's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
It's a long day. And I have to be honest with you, I generally have a beer after a race, not a glass of wine. But when it came time to name my winery, I came up with all kinds of ideas, but I had 2 horses on the property that just mesmerized me, and I wanted to memorialize them. And so Tamburina and Bey Amo, hence the spelling of the Bay, B-E-Y, Bey Amo is how it came out. And by the way, the picture on here is Bey Amo.
Yep, that's Bey Amo.
That's and he's still alive. He's 26, 27 years old.
Right over there.
And he's doing great. So that's where the name came from. And 12 years ago, I bought this property here in Calistoga. It was an existing horse ranch. I'd never been a winery before, and I got full clearance from the county to build a winery. And one way to do that is not to build a winery, but to only redecorate. So our winery, which Chris and I are looking at, was an old covered riding arena, 17,000 square feet, perfect size for our winery and also to make custom crush for other clients, including Thomas Brown clients and a few others.
So one thing about endurance racing that I never really knew until I really met Barry, like I didn't really know what it was about. Like, how do you do this? I mean, I get it, like riding a horse up the hill and stuff like this and everything. There's all sorts of little things that you have to do on behalf of the horse too, to keep it healthy and to keep it, really in the best state it can be. And a lot of them are like, so you ride up the hills and they come to water sources, and sometimes they're lakes, sometimes they're rivers and things like this. But the horses need their time, so you just ride right into the water, and the horses drink, and they're having a good time. You're relaxing, you're figuring out your next strategy of which way to go, and this way. But it was like so interesting about the horses drinking. Like when you're there and how you have to do this whole step. I'm like, oh, wow, this is not like horse racing, you guys. Like we know where you go around this loop-de-loop like this. It's very different.
It's a new expression of bellying up to the bar, because we literally would go into the river, up to the belly of the horse.
Yeah.
And it just calms them down.
And also cools them off. Think about
fantastic.
it. Physically cools them off. So, I mean, that was an amazing thing that you told me. That I just sat there like, here, give me another glass, thank you. Oh
well,
my
it's
gosh,
interesting to bring it up that way, not to get too far off it, but all through the race, whether it's 50, 75, 100 miles, really, the only thing that's consuming my thought is how do I protect the horse? How do I take care of the horse? How do I feed the horse? How do I water the horse? How do I not ride the horse too hard to where it starts exhausting the horse?
Yeah.
So I can make it the entire trip.
This is a very interesting thing. And I mean, you think about how Napa Valley right here, a lot of the time, we have a lot of passes from Napa Valley to Sonoma County that went up and over the mountains. And the reason for that, to be really honest, is because Carneros, as it is today, was much more of a clay sinkhole there, where people would try to get through it in the wintertime and they couldn't. It was just too wet, it was just mud. And so you could not, so they would go up and over. So there's a lot of tradition of horses here, and especially riding over the mountains. So it's a really interesting thing, about horses being here. There's not much space for horses here anymore, you guys.
Right.
People
it's hard.
It's very expensive land here, to say the least. Am I wrong? No, I'm not wrong. But the fact is, it's an important thing, and if you love horses, you have to come to Tamber Bay. I mean, it's like, it really, for me as a horseback rider when I was a kid, it makes me think of my grandfather and how much he would have loved your wines too. And just, it's a great thing. So speaking of Cabernet Sauvignon, there's 3 words in a row that you guys might know. Napa Valley Cabernet or Napa Cabernet Sauvignon. Either way you do it, it makes a lot of sense to most people, and it's really what put this area on the map to stay. There's no doubt that the success in 1976 Paris tasting by Stag's Wine Cellars, winning over the French producers of Bordeaux. There's something special here. We get it. You and I get it. And here we are drinking your version of the latest version. This is 2019, which was an exceptional year for Cabernet Sauvignon. And if you haven't seen the movie that I'm in, A Perfect Vintage, which is about the 2013 vintage, and how a certain friend of ours from up on top of that mountain right there won 100 points score from Robert Parker, but going really into the hardships that winemakers face and growers, as you are, and a proprietor, you are everything. So these great vintages, there are hard vintages that come along. We had 2 of them that were really hard, 2017 and 2020, which were definitely influenced by fire. We had one of the greatest. 2020 might have been as good as this one, and a lot of it got hurt by the fires. But when you have a great vintage like this, you've got to really love it even more. And I think that this 2019 vintage is really one of those exceptional ones, and it should have been 3 in a row, because you're going to see from the 2021 vintage exceptional too. Then 2020 got hurt by the fires, but that would have been 3 in a row that we would have been. But it doesn't matter, because right now we're thinking about the here and now, and we're thinking about this 2019. What makes this wine so special for you, and why do you love Cabernet so much?
Well, let's just start. Why is this wine so good? You speak to 2019. What a fantastic year it was. Yeah. We had quantity, we had quality. 2 of the things that rarely come together. on this wine. But why I love Cabernet goes back to my roots. My first wine that I had back in, it was probably 1979 at George Latour. That was Cabernet. It really overwhelmed me with so many emotions about what wine is about.
Yeah.
And I've just been progressing that ever since. And this is a true Napa Valley style Cabernet. It's grown in the very north part of the Yountville appellation. So it's where this is on what we call the side of the hill. And so it's getting a little bit of that heat that's coming from the north end, gets cooled off at night very, very well, which allows us for long hang times.
Yes.
This is one of the last picks in all of Napa Valley.
Wow.
We have picked this wine in my existence of being here since 1999. I've picked it 4 times in November.
What?
Yeah, what are you doing here? And we are allowed to do that because of the coolness, how it takes things down and just progresses the growing and the ability for that wine to develop all its flavors.
What's the street it's off of?
So
how do you get there?
How do you get there? You have to know a secret code.
Yeah, okay, well, let's not go into the secret code.
Yeah, Yount Mill Road.
Oh, it's on Yount Mill. Okay.
Yount Mill Road, which is a little side road that comes out of Yountville. And, there's a lot of really nice vineyards around this one, but it's kind of tucked right in between the Napa River and Conch Creek.
Yep.
And it's almost a banana-shaped vineyard. So we get these wonderful different terroirs all through the vineyard. And this wine sits at the very north end of it in a bit of a rocky type environment, but yet is influenced by the rivers.
Yeah. Oh,
so
man,
we got great diversity in the soils.
That's amazing. It's tasting brilliant right now, and it's got a fun name to it too. The Deux Chevaux.
Deux Chevaux. Deux Chevaux in French means 2 horses. We just thought we'd keep the namesake going. As it does. This is 100% Cabernet. It's made by 4 different clones. So even though for us it's 100%, we think of it as a blend because we're blending 4 different clones to give this wine great complexity. 18 months in French oak. So I say it's in classic style, but it's also classic style of what Thomas brought to our program.
Is there any C clone in there? SEE?
Yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact.
Let me say one thing about Yountville that has always got me excited about a clone of Cabernet Sauvignon, which is not, 337, everyone's got 337. The C clone is something that I learned so much about, and listen to this, you guys. The C is spelled SEE, and it was indeed the See's Candy family that actually had the original portion of it that people said, wow, that's really good. Can we take cuttings from that, and we will propagate them, and they became the C clone, SEE.
So we planted that in 2002, if I'm not mistaken.
And it's in Yountville that the C family was based.
And it's one of the 4 clones that is in this wine. Very cool.
Look at me.
Look at him. Look at him where you get it. But there is a little bit of chocolate density in this wine, a little bitter chocolate, but I think I'll give credit just to the Cabernet varietal for all that.
Yep. Yeah.
This is our workhorse of the family. We make about 1,500 cases on average every year. It is, I think, the family favorite. Like I said, it is a classic style Napa Cab.
Yeah. This dog right here cannot have any, but he's cute. And he's a black lab, go figure. Maybe I need some dark chocolate now or something. But this is really great style. And I love how classy it is. I mean, it's elegant, sophisticated. It's drinking extremely good right now, being young, but it has the acid base and it has the structure to keep it going for another 15 years. So this is why Yountville to me is a very special place. We look at Yountville and we look at places like Dominus, which is a great place that won #1 in the Wine Spectator. Why did it win it? And you've got a great winemaker there or owner there that was, head of Petrus which is Merlot Day. That's a Merlot based wine.